Switching from auto to manual is the best thing that you can do for your videos. And it can be a little bit overwhelming learning manual camera settings, but I would just watch this video a couple times, and then the most important thing is to just practice and you'll totally get the hang of it eventually. So most beginner videographers and photographers start off with a Canon Rebel. That's what I started off on, and so I thought I'd show you all of the manual settings on the Canon Rebel. F-stop means how much light is let into your camera. Every single lens has a different f-stop. This is a 50mm lens and it has a 1.8 f-stop. The lower the number, that means the more light is let into your camera. Some lenses even go down to 1.2, and then there's other lenses that are zoom that don't go quite as low. But it's important to remember when you're shooting a low light that you'll probably have to go down to a lower f-stop. And then when you're shooting during the day, that the lower the number of the f-stop means the more blur your background is going to have. And so if you want to have your subject more in focus and the background blurred, then you're going to want to have a lower f-stop. And then if you're going to want to have everything in focus, like a nature or landscape shot, then you're going to want to have a higher f-stop. So this is where your f-stop is located on the display panel. And if you want to change it, then you press the AV button and then you just scroll on this little nodule right here, and then it will change your f-stop. ISO basically just means how much artificial light is coming into your camera. And so you don't really want to have artificial light, you want to have as much natural light as possible. And so I would just try to keep your ISO at a low number if possible. The best case scenario is to have your ISO at 100, but I wouldn't go higher than 400 if you can help it. The only time where it's okay to use a higher ISO is if you're shooting in a low light situation and you just want to know what your camera's limits are with the ISO before it's really grainy and not very usable footage. And so my Canon 5D Mark IV, I can use an ISO up to 6400 and I'll still have a good outcome of the footage. But if you are using a different camera, you can just look up online and see what your camera's capabilities for ISO are. This is where you'll see your ISO on your display, and then you just click this button up on top, and then you can make a selection in your camera which ISO number you want to have it at, and you can also do this manually as well. Shutter speed is really important to remember, especially when you're shooting slow motion. You're going to want to have your shutter speed be double your frames per second. So if you're shooting at 30 frames per second, then you want your shutter speed to be at least 60. And if you're shooting at 60 frames per second, then you're going to want your shutter speed to be at least 120. If you don't have your shutter speed at least at those numbers, then your footage is going to be really lagging and it's going to be glitchy looking and just not very smooth. This is where you change the shutter speed on the display menu. So you'll just want to spin this little dial and then you can see that it'll change. This is going to be where you'll change your white balance, and you'll see daylight, shade, cloudy, tungsten, white fluorescent, and those are better for indoors. Oftentimes though, you're just going to need to change it manually with the Kelvin, and so just remember that a lower number means a cooler temperature, such as indoors, and if you want to go really high, then that's better for the shade, and during the day somewhere in the middle.